I want to welcome you this afternoon to Design on High Point Market from International Market Centers. Today we have our topic, New Lighting Trends in High Point, and this is in partnership with Furniture Lighting Decor. Diane Falvey, the Editor-in-Chief, will be moderating our discussion. We have Abigail, Matt, and Andrew, Charles, all joining us today, and we're thankful for their participation. This is CEU accredited, so if you need the credit, it will be emailed out to you via email tomorrow. And if you need the credit and you're watching by Facebook or YouTube at a later time, you can email me, Kimberly Porter, at kporter@imcenters.com, and I'll send you that information. If you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to put those in the Q&A, and we'll get to those towards the end. And we're ready. Diane, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. So as Kimberly said, I'm Diane Falvey. I am the Editor-in-Chief of Furniture Lighting Decor, and we are here with Matt Berman and Andrew Kotchen, the founding principals at New York City design and architecture firm Workshop APD, and they are working with Arteriors. Kimberly, I think we were going to show products as we get going here. So I just want to make sure we have those up so we can see what everybody is doing. There we go. And that's what Workshop APD is doing with Arteriors, some of the new lighting that they have with them. And next we have, as soon as we look at some of these beautiful, look at that mirror. These are gorgeous. I can't wait to see these in High Point Market. I really can't. I have an appointment already with Arteriors, so I'm very excited.
Thank you.
We have Abigail Sorensen, Sales and Events Manager for Visual Comfort and Company. And we have some new products coming in from Visual Comfort as well. What a gorgeous chandelier we've got there. And last but not least, let me just see if we get through these. We have Charles Pavarini III. He's a show house designer, a lighting designer, author, and the founder-president of Paverini Design. Charles has a newly published book, so that will be available soon. Charles, tell us a little bit about the book.
The book is written for residential designers, and it's not a technical book, but the book is written so that the interior designer has more knowledge of how to use new technology in lighting interiors. The technology, LEDs, is advancing so quickly, and I've noticed that a lot of designers are confused by the new technology. And when I kept on seeing that, I thought I need to write a book on it just as a guideline to help designers understand new technology. Okay.
Very smart.
The reason I've asked Charles about his new book is because there'll be a giveaway for that book at the end of this. So that will be really, really wonderful. So what I'd like to start with is have you guys tell me a little bit about yourselves and your businesses and what you're doing. And then we'll talk about what's happening in lighting, because it's a really exciting category right now. So I'm going to start with Matt. Matt and Andrew, if you want to take turns and talk a little bit about talk a little bit about Workshop, and then talk a little bit about what you're doing with Arteriors.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for having us here. It is, although we can't be in High Point in person, it's just fun to get together with everybody and have these conversations. Andrew and I started Workshop now over 20 years ago, which is kind of crazy to think, but it was that long ago. We were 7 years old when we started the firm, and
we were all
prodigies.
We were all
prodigies. Yeah, we were prodigies back then.
We started really in residential architecture and design, and that's really where we cut our teeth. We really started to understand how people lived in their homes, and those homes, over the course of 20 years have grown in size, grown, in many more diverse locations. Most of our work predominantly is still in the single family home market. Though we've expanded into a lot of multifamily, condos and stuff like that, and hospitality. Do a fair number of hotels and restaurants now also. And out of that grew really an interest in product. And we were doing custom product for our custom clients, for our bespoke clients, and then really leverage that into product that we could develop for our hospitality clients, because now we're talking about volume product. And that really launched our interest in sort of product for product's sake, product that we can develop for the market, which led to relationships with people like Arteriors, which has been really a fantastic relationship.
Wonderful. And as architects, I'm sure you guys have you have an insight into how people are living in their homes right now too. So it's a really valuable insight when you're creating product, right? Andrew, do you have anything to add about what you're doing with Arteriors and your company?
Sure. I mean, I would add one thing in that I think where our sort of project verticals, where we found this sort of interest is in the space between residential and hospitality and development, in that all of these project types have a tremendous overlap. And in that, as Matt articulated, is this sort of opportunity for product development. And I think when we started thinking about our collection for Arteriors, we wanted to approach it in a very sort of clean and focused point of view. We wanted each segment of it has very clean names like roll and bend, and just very like titles that capture the essence of what we're trying to create. Bring almost an architectural language to lighting that is a slight less decorative and more composed and curated through form and material and texture and things like that. And the process has been great, back and forth with a lot of their fabricators and the design team at Arteriors. It's been, I think, a tremendous learning experience for Matt and I and the folks in our office who participated tremendously in the creation of this product. And we're excited to see it down at High Point, and hopefully folks will enjoy it and buy it ultimately at the end of the day.
It's great. We call that crossover from commercial to residential, resimercial, and we are in our magazine.
That's good.
That's a good word.
We like that.
Okay,
Resimercial.
Remember it. But we do see so much back and forth between hospitality and the home that in the residentials, people want the materials that are going to hold up, and in hospitality, they want that homey feel. So that's resimercial is the word, right? So, all right, thank you. Abigail, tell us a little bit about what you do for visual comfort and what visual comfort is bringing to High Point this week.
Sure. Well, I actually 5 years ago joined VCC to open a showroom, a factory showroom, and started with it says events and sales, but it's a lot of education, training, and workshops in what was a 14,000 square foot showroom. And that actually recently closed because of the quarantine. And so I transitioned to doing a lot of webinar training. But it fits really nicely with visual comforts. I think the team there is really passionate about bringing good lighting to the lighting world. And we have a mix of commercial and residentially focused product lines. And that really supports that idea that we're focused on as a company to help people in general and the public have a better understanding of what lighting can do for their spaces. And that's really evolved. I agree. Charles, I love the idea of your book. With the advancement of LED, we're all just paying a lot more attention to what lighting can do. And that's what I'm really passionate about. And we work on that a lot at where I work in visual comfort.
I'm really excited to learn more about that, because obviously lighting has become a really essential element in the home these days because of what we've been dealing with the past year. But before we start questions, Charles, tell us a little bit about you, what you've done, what you're doing, and what you're doing with Allura now too, because you've got a beautiful line there.
Thank you. Great to be here, and thank you for having me. I have my firm, Paverini Designs, and I've been working residential for a few decades. And I have always been interested in lighting. And through the years, I've always thought, I'd like to put out a line of lighting, a collection. And I developed this collection, and it was quite awakening to me to know that it takes more time than one thinks. It has, through the whole process with Cusco Allura, and it's been a great relationship. And, during the pandemic, a lot of us were totally isolated. I was. And what I did to keep my mind going is every day I would draw and draw and draw. And I designed about 60 fixtures during the pandemic. The ones that we're seeing now that are now being introduced by Alora have been designed before the pandemic. But, I have many more that are going to be coming out. And, just to explore what LEDs can do, because it's a whole new avenue for us in lighting. And it has taken over the market totally. That is the light source now. And what we're seeing that the LEDs can do is amazing, to see all of these ribbon lights and, different types of lights. And now the fixtures are really built around an integrated LEDs. We could never do that before with just incandescent bulbs. So I think that the new LED technology has opened up vast arenas to us. And it's going to be as creative as the designer.
That's wonderful. And it's true. LED, I mean, even since I've started with Furniture Lighting and Decor, which is just a few years ago, LED has just changed so significantly, and there's so much that you can do with it. And it's not just about how much, how long that the bulbs will last at this point. And we will get into that technology in a little bit. But first, let's talk a little bit about lifestyle, because this past year and a half have really, really changed the way people live in their homes and the way the homes function. And consumers have been like on a tear, buying all things for the home for more than a year now. And so what I want to ask all of you guys is, and I'm going to start with Abigail, how have you seen this affect the lighting category overall?
Well, as you can imagine, for us, I mentioned commercial and residential. It really has impacted the commercial side of our business tremendously, negatively. But fortunately, we really saw an increase in residential as people really moved towards, focusing on making their homes a little more comfortable once they started spending time in that way. And I think for us, we transitioned to really focusing on that with digital assets. It was already something that we did, but it really became, clear that we needed to up our game in that area. And we've really transitioned to focus a lot on helping people to digitally access what it might feel like to put lighting in their space, to create 2D and 3D models, Revit, photography, video. These kinds of assets are really very helpful for designers, but also, residential people, the customers, to understand what lighting can do for them.
Right, and I think that's something that's lacking for most consumers in a residential environment. We live in our homes, but we don't live in our homes, or we haven't until this past year. And so people don't understand how lighting is supposed to work in the home and what you need, because there are so many different types of lighting. Matt and Andrew, you guys work on both the hospitality and the residential side as well. How have you seen this past, the way things have changed affect your business, and and how has it affected the lighting that you work with? What's changed for you since you said hospitality and now more residential?
I was just pulling off what you just said, Abigail. I think one of the main differences, and you just touched on it, is we see ourselves in our homes, but we don't see ourselves in our homes, right? We live in our homes, but we don't see ourselves in our homes. But because of all the Zooming that we've been doing, we now literally see ourselves in our homes. We see how we look in our homes. And you have to imagine that, like, the ring light, for example, has sold out, right? Because everybody is now much more aware of what they look like and what their backdrop looks like and what kind of lighting they're sitting in. So I think everyone is now a lot more conscious of what good lighting actually means and what it means to be well lit. I can see right now that I'm lit from one side because there's a window over here and not lit from the other side, and I think all of those things are the things that people are just much more aware of, and it informs all the conversations that we have with our clients as we go forward about natural lighting, about artificial lighting, about light temperatures, about things, all the things that Charles was just talking about in terms of LEDs, like understanding light quality in a room is now something people are much more aware of and are prepared to have conversations about.
Those are great thoughts. And it's funny, you mentioned the ring light. I hate the ring light because I wear glasses. So you always see the rings in my glasses. And it's just funny that you mentioned that. So somebody has to come up with a ring light that doesn't reflect off glasses. Andrew, do you have anything to add as far as what's changed in your guys' business and how lighting is impacting things now?
I mean, I think a lot of things have changed in our business, really, mostly for the positive. I think we feel that we've been pretty fortunate through the pandemic. We've almost doubled the size of our office. We've never been busier. And I think it's all been, and there's going to be long-term change into the way we conduct business, both out of our office with our clients and both within our office with our staff. So I think we've really moved the needle. These are topics folks have been talking about for quite some time now through the pandemic. So it's really nothing new, but we've definitely moved the needle, 10 years ahead in the way we interact and engage with others. So I think that's a real positive. As far as how it changes with lighting, the only thing I would add is that I think people have talked about, how we've rethought our homes and how the home has changed. I don't actually see it as the home has changed. I think people have just wanted to finish their homes. People tend to live in spaces that are always unfinished and poorly lit and not done to a level that I think generally most of us in the profession deliver on a day-to-day basis. And it's really become, as Matt just said, you see yourself in your home, so you want to finish it. You want to create something that feels comfortable to be in, both for you to inhabit and also for others to see. So and it's not as much about change. It's more about people driving a stake in the ground and saying, the home is important to me and I'm going to care about it more. I'm going to finish it more. I'm going to invest in it more because it's a place that I know I'm going to be with my friends and family. So it's not I think the word change is probably a little bit overused through this, that it's just more about you're conscious and aware, like Matt was just saying. But the pandemic has been an up and down roller coaster, but in the end, I think we hope to be coming out of it as sort of a better practice, a better culture in our office, and sort of a more tight knit bunch, which is exciting.
And it's very, very important. And Charles, you have a designer perspective, so I'm sure that you talk about lighting with your clients all the time and how lighting impacts their environment that they're living in, right? But now in our environment now and the way we're living now, I would imagine it's even more important. So talk a little bit about what's changed for you as a designer and how that's kind of gotten you started on this path to creating this lighting line and how that's going to impact your clients.
I think that this past year has shaken us all up, and we're all looking at our own homes. We've all been in our homes for the past year, and I really feel that the client is really looking at how they feel in their interior. And yes, color and form, etc., makes us feel certain ways. But lighting impacts how we internally feel about being in our space. If the light is too cool, we're offset by that. And I'm finding that clients are now focusing much more on their interior lighting, not just as decorative fixtures, and lamps, etc., which is important, but what type of a lamp bulb are you using that will enhance not only how you feel, but your interior? I think that with the advent of LEDs, our interiors look better because we can actually control the quality of the light and the color of the light so that it enhances what we've designed within the interior. And I feel because everybody has been home, we're all Zooming, we've all great filmmakers now. And
really,
a lot of people are like Matt and Andrew mentioned that, how do we look in our home? We never looked to see how we look, But now we see it because we're seeing ourselves on screen. And that lighting, I think, is changing also because everybody wants to look good on screen. And I agree with you, Diane, that the ring lights, they were at the beginning of the pandemic. I think we have transitioned away from ring lights because of, you know, the glare in our glasses, and it's a cool light, etc. And I think we're paying much, much more attention because I do feel that home office will continue. I don't think we're all going to go back to, you know, our offices outside of the home. I think we're going to even make our home office even more compatible with how we feel and look. And I have always concentrated on lighting throughout my career. I use lighting as a design tool, not just to illuminate, but you know, we can actually paint with light, and we can make our spaces so much more exciting with lighting, and now with lighting controls. And that's another whole field that is opening up, is how we control our lighting. You know, we can control our lighting outside of the home. And, you know, now we can connect our lighting to our GPS so that when we're getting close to our home, we can walk in the home with it illuminated as it is programmed because of the new technology. And I think that technology is going to advance so quickly as it has been.
And talk a little bit, you're talking about like the technology, and we'll get to that in a few minutes, but talk a little bit too about what lighting do consumers, like in general, what type of lighting do consumers need to have in their homes for it to function properly? We're doing homework, we're cooking, and then at night you want to watch TV. Like, what are some of the elements that need to be in the home? If you're designing a space that you suggest to your clients, or you would suggest to other designers, as far as elements what lighting elements need to be there?
Now, you know, the temperature of the light and the color of the light is very important because we feel different, we function different with different kelvins of light. And that is changing a great deal. And, you know, there is new technology now that with one lamp, one light bulb, you can tune the type and color of the white. It's called tunable white, so that you don't have to have different fixtures, etc. Okay. But you can actually adjust that one light bulb from 2000 Kelvin up to 4000 Kelvin. And that's quite a spread of a temperature color range. So I feel that that's going to become more prominent in residential, so that we can tune the light and program the light for certain times of the day and certain functions and tasks in the day. You know, if I'm going to be relaxing in the evening, I don't want bright white light. I want it to start working with my circadian rhythm to start to calm and get the body ready for sleep. And I think that lighting is going to be more in tune with wellness. And we hear that, and we've heard that word for the past couple years. It's becoming more and more prominent, and especially in lighting. Wellness has a lot to do with light, and also the combination of artificial light with natural light. You know, we need to take advantage of natural light.
Okay.
That's all really well said, Charles.
Yeah.
I just add one thing, Diane, that when we think about lighting in a space, we think about it generally in sort of three components. There's sort of task lighting, there's ambient lighting, and there's mood lighting. And sort of how you light a space with different levels through recessed lighting, through decorative fixtures, through lamps and things like that. And everything that Charles just said, I mean, I think we never used to really talk about temperature that much of lighting with clients. It wasn't something that came up. And now through this sort of wellness lens of circadian lighting, which is an incredible technology that is a game changer in the way you inhabit indoor spaces, whether it be to live in or even to grow vegetables in warehouses that don't have any natural light in them. The possibilities are really infinite in the way that technology is influencing how lighting is used. And LED has allowed it to happen because it burns at a different temperature, doesn't heat up like halogen bulbs used to do, or even incandescent bulbs. And it lasts a long time. And there's just so many different things that we can do now in spaces to sort of address this idea of ambient, task, and mood. That it's a fun thing to really think about. And we're starting to, I think, use a lot more decorative fixtures in our projects because we can lamp them in a much more attractive way that's both functional, healthy, and sort of beautiful to look at. And we're in a real like changing time. So Charles, I'm really interested to read your book. I'm sure it's pretty amazing, and how, because we're not lighting designers, but we know just enough to be dangerous and mess things up. But it's a real technology that you have to be well versed in to get it right, because we've gotten it wrong. We've paired lights together that are not working temperature wise, they're not working lamping wise, and you really have to know a lot more today to light a space appropriately. There's a lot of mistakes that can be made.
And it sounds like your book.
I'm not a lighting designer, but I am an interior designer that have worked, for decades. And now our decorative fixtures can also incorporate this new sense of lighting, with the temperatures and the color of light. We could even put a light bulb in a lamp and we could change it to 1 million different colors. And that technology has changed how we're living now. If you just look in the exterior of our cities have become colorful lighting beacons. It's amazing what can be done with the LED.
It's interesting too. I mean, you look at just the simple things that change a space when it comes to lighting. Simply switching a regular switch to a dimmer has an unbelievable effect in your experience of the space. Being able to dim light, like Charles was saying, based on the time of the day or your particular mood is incredibly important, right? It can help create a mood, create an atmosphere. And most homes, when you walk into them, don't even have that, right? And you'd think, obviously, the higher level homes, many of the projects that we're working on, that's something that's very important to us. But you walk into a lot of homes across this country and they don't even think about having dimmers. Just installing a dimmer changes the mood, gives you the ability to change the mood of the space. Yes. And then getting to color temperature. So those two things, color temperature and being able to dim, should be baseline. And if you're thinking about what you want to do to change the way your home feels, those two things are very easy, available at any building supply store. The next thing gets into sort of design. You walk into many homes and you'll see homes that are just gridded out with sort of large recessed lights. No one likes sitting under those. Those aren't pleasant to sit on a sofa with a 60 or 80 watt, 6-inch screw-in halogen bulb above your head. It's just not pleasant. And so, usually you want to turn them off, but ultimately that's what a lot of developers default to because it's an easy, quick way to light the home. But when you start getting into lighting design and you start talking about the things that Andrew was talking about, which are about ambient light or diffused light, right? Light that isn't coming at you, but that's bouncing off of something. Then you really start to create a mood. And so if you can start to ask those questions early on, you can get a much better result that really is independent of final price point, right? It's just about a conscious decision about where you use lights and how you use them versus what those particular fixtures might cost.
Okay, Abigail. I just want to go to Abigail quickly because you said you do webinars for visual comfort. So I would imagine you're discussing these things with clients and designers and retailers. Talk a little bit about about your take on this, and also how it's impacting visual comfort's new lighting introductions. And I'm going to ask you guys that same thing. How is all of this technology impacting your lighting introductions? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's funny, just thinking through what I was going to talk about today, I came up with pretty much the same thing we're all talking about. Color of light quality of the LED, dynamic lighting, being able to warm dim, or as it dims down, it shifts to warmer colors, or even dynamic white, tunable white. These, and then plus the addition of great controls, these are the things that really are going to drive the future of lighting, I think, as we go forward in the next few years. And the challenge seems to me always to be, how do you help our customers understand what those tools can do for you in their space? So if you're building a home, working with someone, how do you understand what having the exact right level of light, color of light, shape of light on a piece of art can draw your eye through the whole room and just highlight and create this moment and this experience. We don't want a grid of recessed cans. We want very specific, beautifully, articulated light in the exact places with lots of layers. When you have a table lamp that glows and makes that beautiful experience in a conversation area, combined with a couple of very specifically located point sources that are minimal in the ceiling, they're not bright in the ceiling, they punch the light in a way that, all coming from different directions, creates a really exciting space to be in, and doesn't give you that heavy feeling of having the downlights all over the place. So just figuring out how to use lighting as a better tool for everyone, I think that's a great conversation to start with.
So I have a question. So we're talking about LED. Let's move on to like the technology piece, and we're talking about LED. And I am going to ask you guys about your product lines with this. Obviously, LED is kind of taken over the lighting industry in these last couple of years. But answer a question for me from a technological standpoint, because I think consumers are still a little bit behind where the rest of us in the lighting industry might be. Is it bulbs, or is it integrated elements in the lighting that you're putting together now as we move forward? What do you think is the most comfortable way to do that? Abigail, since we have you, we might as well start with you.
Okay. I think it's really a mix. When we are looking at some of the newer designs coming out of visual comfort and tech lighting, we like to do the integrated LED because generally speaking, you have much better color quality control. And you have better functionality. You can control the driver, which helps, how well is it going to dim down? If you've got a replacement lamp, you're basically, banking on the quality of the driver that went into that lamp to know how low it's going to dim down. So you can buy high quality replacement lamps, but it's harder to find. So I feel like as we transition into the higher end pieces are definitely being made more and more with the integrated light source. And I feel like 5 years ago, we were doing that with modern styles, and we're starting to do it more with traditional lighting as well, traditional design as well. So that's where I think we're moving, but you have to take the market with you. So, and people need flexibility, and so we still produce a lot of products that have a replacement source in them.
Okay. Matt and Andrew, how about you? Are you guys using integrated LED, or are you finding that with some of the pieces that you have, that bulbs are the better way to go right now?
Really both. It's really both. I mean, a lot of integrated LED. I think one of the things that's really interesting on the architectural side is that the LED can get integrated into very, very thin assemblies. So you're starting to see a lot more use of LEDs that are integrated into something that is the thickness of a millwork, side panel, or the thickness of sheetrock, or the thickness of something that ultimately you could never put a light in before. And so I think that gives us a lot more flexibility in integrating integrated LEDs into architectural components. And, certainly in a lot of the recessed fixtures, now, like we were talking about before, instead of large diameter fixtures, we're working with fixtures that have like a 1/2 inch diameter. I mean, tiny, diameters, but output a tremendous amount of light. And so you almost don't see them in the ceiling, right? Really beautiful fixtures that produce a great quality of light that basically disappear. So, that's exciting for us because, again, you're getting away from that Swiss cheese effect in the ceiling and really able to make sure that a space is well lit while also being, feeling very, very clean.
Okay. And Charles, too, as with your lights too, same question. Is it bulbs or is it the, do you have integrated pieces or a combination? And as a designer, how do you give your clients the confidence that integrated piece is going to last forever and all that kind of good stuff and be the right choice?
I use both integrated and the actual lamp, the light bulb. And excuse me, with an actual light bulb, you don't necessarily need a type of remote driver because it's built into the bulb. So that is the homeowner and the layperson, that is a great way to update your lighting and your home just by replacing some bulbs. It's energy efficient. It lasts, 25 to 50,000 hours, etc. But we're talking about light temperature and Kelvin. Another aspect that is really important is CRI, color rendering index, because that will show the colors, the true color of your fabrics and paints, etc. That is so important, and I like to use 95 CRI or above to get the best quality of light. But I'm using both, and I just did a major dressing room for a client in Greenwich, Connecticut, and we lit all of the interior of her closet cabinets with LED strips, vertical strips, and they are flush with the millwork. And she was just amazed that she could open the closet and it's totally illuminated. And what's great, which Matt brought up, is that they do not heat up like halogens. I mean, halogens, we could never do that. And I've even used LED strips behind headboards to light the headboards up. We could never do that with incandescent or halogen. We would cause massive fires. Now we can.
We haven't tried, but
I've even put LED strip lighting into cabinetry. And what we can do with it is so vast. I think it really depends on the imagination of the creator, the designer, the architect, of how much we could do with it. And to take it and push the envelope of new ways to use this technology. And that's what excites me. We can do the fixtures, etc. But, many times we don't even need a fixture. And how I like to do lighting and to design with light is if it's a decorative fixture, totally okay with that. But I agree with the Swiss cheese ceilings with, 8-inch, 6-inch, 8-inch cans. That is such old technology, and I see new homes still being built that way.
Crazy.
But I don't like to see the source of light. I think it's much more exciting if you see the glow of light coming out from the architecture and defining the architecture.
Totally agree. Yeah.
So, all right. So LED obviously is a technology that is definitely kind of taken over in the lighting industry, and it's making a huge impact. And Andrew, I wanted to ask you really quickly, how do you educate like the layperson who might not understand the impact of LED lighting? So if I'm coming to your Arteriors showroom to see your new line in High Point this week, what would some of the educational pieces be about those pieces that I would hear?
I mean, I think there's nothing like seeing things in person, obviously. So certainly visiting showrooms and looking at different lighting installations, whether it be sconces, table lamps, floor lamps, cove lighting, like Charles just said, indirect lighting that's embedded into a design, into an architecture. That's how we tend to educate our clients or educate any folks that we're talking with, is very much through imagery if we can't get into an actual space to see it. We also use a lot of 3D animation and rendering tools to enhance and show people the effects of light. While they're not as accurate as living in a space, we can do some pretty tremendous things right now with the technology we're using to sell design. And we can place, objects of fixtures within spaces. We can show different types of cove lighting, cabinet lighting, indirect lighting, all of these sorts of things to give people a sense of how the space can be layered in that way. I think in any talented design person always speaks of sort of layering and texture within space, whether it be fabrics, whether it be woods, whether it be flooring, exterior materials, and lighting is really no different. It is layered, it is textured, it is colored, and it has that same level of effect on a space. So to bring it back to High Point, I think as people walk around and ultimately go into different showrooms, you can see the difference in the quality of light through the shades. Often, I was just at a client's apartment this morning, looking at an installation we recently did. And somehow, two of the same exact lamps had different opacity on the shade, and it's something that's very noticeable when the lights are on. Just a mistake made in the inner lining of the shade, not the silk on the outside. And we've become more attuned to this stuff, and you see it, and you see there's stuff that appeals to you because your brain connects to it in a sort of visceral way based on temperature, like we spoke about, but also visually. And I think with lighting, it's an experiential thing. It's something that people need to see, touch, and inhabit to really get a sense of how it can affect them.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Abigail, question for you. So we've been talking about LED and the impact that LED and how it's changing is having on the industry. And we talked a little bit about dimming. Talk to me a little bit more about other technological advances that are happening in lighting that are going to impact us going forward and are going to be included in the debuts that we're seeing in this coming year.
I mean, I'm not sure there's a lot of other technology to talk about. I really think the things that are coming up, I think coming to us that are very exciting are, we've already talked about it extensively, but better quality of LED color and the ability to control that. So when you think about dynamic white or tunable white, think about an interior designer making a complete space. Then you have the controls at a less and less expensive and more sophisticated and easy to use level. And you put these light fixtures in the room, in the ceiling, the table lamps, etc., and they can all be tuned to be the perfect color for the materials in that space. So, you have this upcoming ability to really impact what the interiors look like with dynamic LED lighting. And it may not be 2 years away from now, but we already sell almost all of our downlights with tunable white in them. So if you want that right now, you can get it. But I see that price point coming down, and then things like Li-Fi and easier ways to control the material. If you do a sophisticated lighting design and you have 7 or 8 layers of light in a larger, lounging living room or den, if you don't have a good control system that can give the user 3 scenes to push, they're not going to be able to understand really how to use the space. If you can't have 8, switches on the wall, you just can't do that level of lighting design if you don't have a good control system. So the other key element, I think, in technology as we move forward is watching how that really becomes less expensive and easier for people to access, to do great controls and programming on the front end for the client, so that when they're using the space, they get the most out of every lighting opportunity in the space.
Okay.
Those are the 2 things I really see coming, better color of light and better dimming.
Okay. Charles, same question to you, because I'm curious, you had talked a little bit before about the accessibility that Abigail was just talking about with, how do we create those controls, and how do we educate the clients to use that in the right way?
Well, I actually have clients asking me to remotely manage their lighting. And that now we could do with our iPad and our iPhone. And, I also use sensors so that lights are not left on, and basically because of energy conservation, which LEDs are terrific for that. But I do place sensors so that the client doesn't even need to think about turning on a light. They can program it so that when they walk into a space, a whole scene comes on. And the sensors are also becoming very personal. It's personal lighting. The sensors will eventually be able to detect who is walking in the room and adjust to that person. So if I walk into a room and I program a certain setting, it will illuminate to that setting. If you, Diane, walk in and it's programmed to you and your likes and what makes you comfortable in the space, the lighting will illuminate to your programming. And I think that's going to be a game changer, because we're going to eliminate actual switching, which for me as a designer, I am so glad to get rid of those switches on the wall. They are just terrible looking. They destroy full walls. And I really feel that the sensor is going to become more and more prominent. We're not going to even have to basically think about our lighting. Our lighting is going to think about us. And that's a little bit of a switch. I don't mean switch like a wall. Because our homes are going to be more interactive with us. They are getting that way more and more as technology develops. I just read about the GPS, and I think that is really awesome that you could drive, 3 blocks within your house, and through your GPS, how you program it. That's key. You program it, and then it just illuminates. So when you drive in your driveway, your home is already welcoming and lit, well lit.
So it just automatically picks up that on your phone, and the GPS on your phone that you're home.
Yes.
Wow, that's advanced, right? Because right now, so much of LED, because of LED, so much of the control, like smart home, obviously is a big thing and a growing thing. And, you can control your lighting on your phone, but you need to educate the consumer as to what lighting they need first. And I'm gonna go to Andrew here and just ask you, because now with your new line that you have coming out with Arteriors, have you incorporated that smart home technology or sensor technology or those kinds of things to make it super simple for a consumer to figure out what lighting they need at certain points?
Absolutely. I mean, fortunately, I think in our projects, the smart home is sort of a baseline condition where, like Charles said, we cannot do banks of switches. It just isn't anything that we support. So ultimately, everyone's buying into some sort of lighting system that reduces the switching down to at most a single plate at a home, and generally through their phones and iPads. Although what we're seeing a big sort of swing in is people don't want to be tethered to their phones and iPads anymore. People want to begin to disengage from the technology, but still use the home. And that's where the motion sensing comes into, which I like to think of my house as a case study where I am now, because my children are completely lazy. They don't turn off lights. So we have motion sensors in certain areas that they go in and out of, and I can turn off the lights from my phone. But I think where we're going to sort of begin to see challenges in the next 2 to 5 years, I think, is this idea of people wanting to use the technology, but not wanting to be attached to the technology. And how a smart home becomes a home, as Charles is just articulating, that things really become to be automated based on your patterns and the way you live, the way you use your home, so you don't have to walk around with your phone all day to turn everything on and off. And I think we engage in those conversations a lot with our clients these days of, I want to be able to relax. I want to walk in and out of my door, whatever. And I want to leave my phone inside because I want to get back to paper and read a book. And I think how we're navigating that change is still yet to be seen. I think the technology is not quite there yet to walk through your home without the technology in your face. And it's sort of a catch-22, right? We all want the benefits of the technology, but we don't want to have to engage the technology. And, you know, the past 20 years of home automation has been nothing but problems of expensive systems that people invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in, and they're calling on service all the time to fix. And so it's a confidence thing that what we're now seeing is people are using more app-based systems that work very well, that don't require all this programming technology. So how do you bring that all together in a way that's very user-friendly and doesn't break? And I think that's the sort of where the rubber is going to meet the road here, and how we're going to sort of advance the way we live in a smart home. I'm not smart enough to know what the answer is. I don't know all the technologies that are out there, but I do know that that's something that we're identifying as an issue with our clients right now.
What about
I think
It's all coming though. There's no question. I mean, you know, you think about it. If I get into my car with my key fob, everything adjusts to my settings. My husband gets in the car, it adjusts to his settings automatically, right? Our thermostat adjusts, it's a smart thermostat, it follows our patterns, it understands when we use things, when we don't, right? It's sort of learning our lifestyle. You think about all of the different things like all the Google Voice and Alexa and all these things, you know, all of those things are things that help you interact, you know, with the things around you. So it's happening. There's no question over the next couple of years. Ideally, it's going to go from something that's sort of, you know, in your face, like your phone and your iPad, to something that's not in your face, that is really very discreet, and it still accommodates all the things that you need to have done.
But it comes at a price, Matt. Alexa listens to all of us, knows what we're doing. When you get in the car, my wife gets in the car all the time with my key. She's frustrated. Why isn't the car changing? There's user dysfunction. Yeah. I'm quite sure your husband has some of those dysfunctions too. I know you're the IT professional of your family. So there's the challenges there that we all have to deal with, that I think are where is the barrier to entry on technology. Sometimes, I mean, we see with a lot of people right now, Matt, you know, a lot of our clients are like, we're anti-technology. We want it. One client of mine says, PhD, push here, dummy. That's what you want. That's what they want. It's like, just keep it simple. Don't make it too complicated. So it's a challenging time, I think, of how
Andrew,
we integrate all this.
So
Andrew,
you really
I think
that bridge with your clients. Yeah.
I think, Andrew, that you really hit on a point that a lot of my clients tell me and ask for, is simplicity. With these complicated, incredibly wired interiors for controls, I did one that was hundreds of thousands. My clients, they call me all the time. How do I get in my bedroom? I can't light anything to get in my bedroom. Yeah, and then I can't do it either. And then if they have, you know, older parents or something, they're literally in the dark. And that's what I think, and I feel the technology will advance to, is where we don't need to be totally conscious on how to live within our interior. Yeah. And living with our interiors has everything to do with lighting.
Okay. So that's a really interesting. So if you guys all had a crystal ball, we're going in a way of like technology is taking over in lighting, but eventually it's going to be seamless and we're not even going to know, right? It's just going to happen. So we don't have to worry about telling Alexa and having Alexa listen. We don't have to worry about our phones. It'll just automatically work for us. Talk to me a little bit about how retailers and designers, though, can, you've talked all about having such a range of clients. Some want it simple, some want it, some want that smart technology. So talk to me about how how retailers and designers can educate their clients about what works and how do you go about making sure you're doing what's right for them? How do you understand their needs, and then how do you educate them, and how do you create product that delivers? Charles?
Good question, Diane. You know, I was thinking about retail design, and if the retailer is very conscious about the lighting in certain areas of their store, they can light that area so it is very comfortable to the consumer, so that the consumer will stay in that area. And they'll stay there, and probably, and it is already proven, that they will purchase more because they feel comfortable in that space. What's making them feel comfortable? The lighting quality. If the lighting is poor, they'll go through that area and leave. So I feel that lighting in retail is extremely important. And, you know, through all of what we're all talking about, it all siphons down to how do we now design fixtures and product that will reinforce what we're all saying. And I think that's all of our challenge as designers, is how do we give the public fixtures that do what we're talking about?
Right, right. Abigail, how about for you, for visual comfort? What, how do you bridge that? Like, so when you have customers with different needs, how do you bridge that, and how do you design your lighting so that it's reaching a broader group, and how do you explain that to your retailers and your designers?
That's a great question. So this is actually really near and dear to my heart. We really feel like seeing, touching is believing, and you know, we're talking a lot about very varied projects on this conversation, but there's a wide world of homes being built out there at a lot of different price points and levels. And if your customer, if your homeowner doesn't understand what great lighting can do for them, they don't see the value in investing in it. And that's just a huge gap that we're all talking about, right? You've got a multi-million-dollar home being built, and it's got a 6-inch can in it. So we really just started investing with our Circa stores and some of our partner retailers in architectural experience centers. So right now we're really focused on, it's about a 600 square foot space, and myself and a team of people have designed the product and the lighting design in the space. And it has a kitchen, dining room, library wall, vanity, closet. You can go through the space and push a scene button and see, you know, really what we think is the best lighting experience that you can have with the product and technology that we sell. So that's a really great way for people, both salespeople, to go in and say, you know, here's what wall washing is, here's what accent lighting is. It's a literal physical space. They can go in and experience that. We can change the color of the light. But we can also just do more general, like, you know, this is what layers of light look like. Here you have a chandelier. Now look what happens when we put 4 tiny point sources on the table, and everything on the table is illuminated. Then you add a layer of cove lighting in, and people can really start to understand a little better how great lighting can impact their spaces. So that's something we're really focused on. And then, of course, just putting the fixtures in front of them is the best way to help people understand, you know, what they're getting with what they buy.
Abigail, I think that's very smart that you're doing this like smart home type of presentation for clients, because I find that light is very hard to talk about. It's ethereal. We can't hold it. We can't really feel it. We can feel it emotionally. And light, the way to understand light is to experience light. And you're developing an experience where that is a really great learning for clients, because then they really understand it, because they're feeling what that light is doing to them and how they feel.
See what they're going to get. And that's the hardest thing. Like you're talking about a 6-inch recessed can. Well, that costs $40. Now you're talking about an architectural downlight that might be $400. How am I justifying the difference? There's a hole in the ceiling with light that comes out. Well, if you can't see that point source and your ceiling is almost, the light's almost invisible at the ceiling, but it's perfectly framing your, maybe very expensive piece of art, there's the value. And, how do we as lighting people in this industry figure out how to decouple a little bit the lighting from maybe the construction package and move it a little bit more in the FF&E package? Like, it really should be in the control of the designer. And I say a lot of my webinars, you don't have to be that knowledgeable about lighting. Like, hire a lighting designer, work with a consultant at a good lighting store. There's a lot of resources in the industry. You just have to know and help your customer understand that they want it and that they are willing to put their resources towards it. That's so easy. Not so easy.
So true. So true.
And that's honestly, believe it or not, we've already been through an hour. So we've been talking about lighting for an hour, and we could probably talk about lighting for another hour. Andrew, I have one last question for you, and then we'll wrap it up, because you guys are architects. And so you're at the beginning of the process with your clients, right? You're not seeing what the house looks like necessarily furnished, and you're putting it together. So how do you explain lighting as an architect so that people are not going with what the contractors are giving them as far as, can lights and things like that? How do you get that point across? And then with the lighting that you guys are doing for Arteriors, how is that being presented in Arteriors so people understand it?
Sure. Well, first, we're fortunate enough that our practice is sort of architecture through interior design, and we sort of deliver a holistic package to our clients. So we very much are engaging in sort of the designer component discussions very early on. And we start out each project with a fairly intense program brief that touches on lighting and technology engagement that people want to have in their home. So we very much create that storyboard early on to understand what type of client we're dealing with and how we should steer the ship as far as implementation, technology, design, and all of those sorts of things. I think as it ties back to our collection with Arteriors, since all of our lighting with Arteriors is decorative lighting, meaning it is either freestanding or attaches to the wall or ceiling, it only touches on, as we've discussed, sort of, one aspect of lighting a space. It's certainly, we think it's what we've created is a very versatile aesthetic that can sort of translate into a residential spaces fairly fluidly. See how I worked that in already? It's fantastic. Great word. And really, at the end of the day, creating decorative lighting that is versatile for many different spaces is something that appeals to us, right? We like to dress our spaces up and down based on uses, time of day, people entertaining or hanging out with their family. And we oftentimes talk about them in that way. So we like to think that our collection is very relevant to that.
That's wonderful. Well, you guys, this has been such an interesting conversation, and lighting is such a technical topic that we could probably go on for the rest of the afternoon, but we do have to wrap it up. So I want to thank Abigail Sorensen with Visual Comfort, Matt Berman and Andrew Kotchen from Workshop APD. I think I said that wrong before. And with their new line at Arteriors, if you're going to be in High Point Market this week, you definitely want to go see those lines. And Charles Pavarini with Allura Lighting, and the new line that you have with Allura, Charles. And everybody, you have to go get Charles' book. Charles, what's the title of your book again?
Goodbye, Mr. Edison.
Nice.
I love it.
Nice.
And we'd like to
love it. Love it.
Great. That's so great. So we'd like to thank IMC at High Point Market for hosting us here today and so we could have this wonderful discussion. And Charles, where can you get your book in case you don't win it in the giveaway afterwards?
We're going to have to wait a little while. It is at the publisher, and you know how that goes. We're seeing it the beginning of 2022, probably.
Okay, very good. But it's an easy title to remember, Goodbye, Mr. Edison. So
yes.
Abigail, Matt, Andrew, and Charles, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful conversation. And I look forward to seeing you guys at markets around town. And I really am looking forward to seeing your products at High Point this week. So
great.
Thank
you.
Thank you very much.